Morning, everybody. Welcome to everybody that's watching online, whether in the live moment or sometime in the future. What an amazing technology we have. My name is Pete, and I'm one of the pastors here at Creekside, and you're joining us for the last message in this series, Getting Past Your Past. And after this message, we'll just have to get past this series. There's a dad joke in there somewhere. I don't know if I quite landed it. Let me begin with a big question. Why were you created? Why? What is the purpose of life? You and I were created to be a reflection of the God who is love into the world. You and I were created to create more things. We were created to envision things, to have ideas, and then to take those ideas from just lofty bubbles over our heads into tangible things in the material world. We were meant to build businesses, to build charities. We were meant to envision things and bring them into the world. We were meant to see broken things and fix them. We were meant to see injustice in the world and bring justice to them. We were meant to see people that are oppressed and help set those people free. We were meant to be people who bring peace into the world. We were meant to be people who raise up the next generation of people who would reflect who God is into the world, to inspire them, to teach them, to encourage them. We were meant to plant gardens. To plant gardens, to put seeds in the ground, and then to water them, and then to learn how to cook with these things that grow, and bake with these things that grow, and deep fry and barbecue these things. We were created to have deep, meaningful, beautiful lives that are a reflection of the God who is love. And if there was one thing I could say that could get in the way of that, it's your past. One of the major things that can get in the way of you experiencing that life that you were created for is your past. We've been talking about these things: guilt from the past, shame that we feel about who we are, carrying around unforgiveness, people that hurt us. All of these things get in the way of us moving forward into this life that we were created to live. And today I want to talk about the last one, and it's a big one: failure. Failure. It's big because it encompasses both all of the ways that we mess up and we feel guilty and shame about, but it also encompasses all of the times that we experience failure and we didn't do anything wrong. Like if you wanted to be like a runner and you want to be the best runner, but you lose the race, that's not sinful. You didn't do anything wrong, but you still experienced failure. You had an idea to I'm gonna make this amazing business. It's gonna be so powerful. It's gonna help so many people. You had this vision and it didn't work. It failed. You went bankrupt. It didn't do anything wrong, but you still experienced failure. And when we experience failure, it can become so just demotivating. It can become so easy to say, I tried once, I don't want to try again. I cared once, I don't think I can care again. I cared once and I tried really hard and I got so embarrassed, I don't want to do that again. So we need to figure out how do I go from this place of I failed to I will try again? How do we get past that feeling? And to explore this a bit today, I want to explore the life of a man named Moses. And we're gonna go to Exodus chapter 2. So if you have a Bible, if you wanna turn it on or open it up, Exodus chapter 2 is where we're gonna jump in. And I wanna go through the story of Moses maybe a bit slower than you're used to. I know it feels slower for me than I'm used to telling the story, because there's high moments in Moses' life that we know are coming if you know the story. If you don't know the story, wow, you are in for a treat. I am always so envious of the people who don't know where the story's going. But I want to read the story in such a way that it feels like we don't know where it's going, and feel the moments that are supposed to, I think, be moments of pause and reflection and Like if you're reading the Bible sometimes, it'll say things like, and then they were stuck there for 40 years. When you read that sentence, you should stop for a second at least and be like, 40 years? Wonder what happened in those 40 years. So often we read, and then they were stuck there for 40 years, and then you just read the next sentence. You're like, no, feel the 40 years. I want us to feel those moments in the life of Moses this morning. So, Moses is born, Exodus chapter 1. He's born as an Israelite slave, but through an interesting set of circumstances, is raised as an Egyptian prince. And where we're gonna jump into the story is when Moses is already full grown. But we should have questions about Moses as we're reading through this. Questions like, who is this guy? You know nothing about Moses. All you know, he was born a slave, but he was raised a prince of Egypt. I wonder what this guy's gonna be like. I wonder if he's gonna be like really arrogant. Like, is he more Egyptian or is he more Israelite? Also sometimes I'll say Hebrew. Is he more Hebrew or is he more Egyptian? What's he gonna be like? I wonder what he's gonna be like. I think that's the question we're supposed to ask as we read through the narrative. What an interesting combination, what an interesting family tree. Born an Israelite slave, raised an Egyptian prince. Wonder what he's gonna be like. So we begin to read. Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. One day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Okay, really important here. Moses knows that he's a Hebrew. We may have had that question before. Did Moses know who he was when he was growing up? Did he know, like, I was born a slave, but I get this amazing life as a prince? He knows, because he calls them his own people. So Moses sees his own people being beaten, and they have this hard life that they have to live. I wonder what he's gonna do. Looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Now this is a huge moment. There's real seriousness to this, but I also gotta admit that as I imagine it, it's a little cartoonish. He sees something and he's like, and he kills the guy, and then he buries him in the sand. Like, that's kind of a funny detail. I don't know about you. Nobody laughed in the first service either. You're not laughing either. It's just me up here all alone. Shouldn't have said it. If I preach this sermon again, won't say that part. Not funny. Buries in the sand, so not funny. Am I right? You agree, yes. Looking this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Who is Moses? Moses is he's a man of action. He's kind of like heroic. He sees his people being oppressed. He sees someone being beaten. What does he do? He doesn't look the other way. He doesn't say, not my problem. He jumps in and he acts. Moses, this guy, okay, Moses. I wonder if Moses is gonna be the hero of this story. Seems like he might have the chops for it. The next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. And he asked the one in the wrong, why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew? So he's not only concerned with the oppression that his people are facing, he's also concerned with the inner strife of his people. Who is Moses? He's a bit heroic, but he also cares deeply for his people. That's another check mark in the Moses column. This Moses guy, pretty impressive. These are two pictures that we get. A third picture, it's a little bit longer. So he says to his men, why are you guys fighting? Then the man said, who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian? And then Moses was afraid and thought, what I did must have become known. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. So, trying to be killed, he's shucking and jiving, he gets out of there. Goes to Midian, which is hundreds of miles away. We're not exactly sure. There's lots of debate about where Midian was. Hundreds of miles from Egypt. And he sits down by a well. Now, a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Some shepherds came along and drove them away. But Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. Even when he's far away in Midian, running for his life, he sees these young girls coming to get water for their flock. And what does he do? He does the right thing. He chases these shepherds away and he helps. Who is this Moses guy? He's like heroic. He cares deeply for his people and he's chivalrous. Like he does the right thing even when it is so detached from him. He's in this strange place and he's like, this shouldn't be happening. I will step in and do the right thing again. If we're reading through the narrative, we were like, the narrator clearly wants us to see Moses as a good guy. A guy who cares deeply for his people and is willing to act. It's almost like you can feel like he has a burden for his people. And so even though he's run away to Midian, you might be reading this going, okay, that's like a short-term thing. Short-term, Pharaoh was trying to kill him. It only made sense to get away. But certainly he's gonna regroup, rethink his strategy. He's gonna get back right in there because he cares for his people and he won't abandon them. That's maybe where you would think if we just stopped here. What do you think happens next? But that's not what happens. The story starts to slow down. When the girls returned to Reuel, their father, he asked them, "Why have you returned so early today?" They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. Just in Midian, just for a second, then I'll get back to my people. Okay, I'll come for dinner. Oh, you have a wife? I'll get married. What comes next? Zipporah gave birth to it, so I'll have some kids. And Moses named him Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." In case we were wondering, how does Moses feel about his life? He feels like his life is so far off course that he names his son, "I've become a foreigner in a foreign land." This would be like naming your son midlife crisis. This is like I had a son, what'd you name him? I named him 25 to life. Named him, it's a life sentence, at least 25 years I'm trapped here with him in my house. This is like, what are you doing? Like, this is the narrator letting us in on the psychology going on in Moses' head. He's been in Midian for a long time. We're not sure exactly how long, but the narrator in the next verse is going to tell us he's there for a long time. How does he feel? He feels far off from his purpose. There once was some deep passion and calling within him, and he tried to enact it. My people should not be slaves. I should help my people. He tried, and he failed. And now he's run away, and he sits with this grief, with this sense of he's a failure. And he becomes a shepherd, and he lives this life feeling like a foreigner in a foreign land. Do you know Midian? Do you know what it's like to be a foreigner in your own life? To feel like you look around your life, you're like, how did I get here? If the teenage me could see the 40-year-old me, they'd be so disappointed. How did you get, we had such dreams and goals and vision and purpose. How did you end up in Midian? With all these little Gershoms running around? It's a metaphor. Children are wonderful. Do you know what it's like to be in Midian, a foreigner in your own life? You started off, you had vision and goals. I'm going to run this business differently. I'm going to be a police officer differently. I'm going to be a doctor differently. I'm going to join this new church, and it's going to be so different than the last church with all those messed up people. And some time goes by, and you experience some failure, and suddenly you pull back from that ambition, from that purpose, from that drive. You pull back and you decide, I don't want to care so much. I don't want to try so hard. I did that before and it hurt. I just need a little break, a little breather. Just give me a little time. But eventually that little time gets longer and longer, and you've settled in a place that is so far from the life that God created you to live. And you experience in that place a sort of death. All of the hopes and dreams slowly die in Midian. I think this is what Moses is experiencing. I imagine Moses as a shepherd on many nights taking care of his sheep out in the sheep field, looking up at the stars, and he can't help but remember his people in slavery in Egypt. And he remembers how he tried and he failed. And he asked God questions like, was I crazy? Was this idea crazy? Do you like that your people are slaves? What is going on? Like, was there more that I could have done? Should I have done something? Like, I imagine he just kept replaying it over and over. And maybe there were times when he even questioned God. God, I care. Do you care? I feel like you put this in me. Did you, or did I just make that all up? Moses is in Midian, feeling like a foreigner in a foreign land. But then the story continues, and the narrator tells us, during that long period in Midian, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. We already met a guy who looked upon the Israelites and was concerned about them. Moses. Now God enters the story, and he has the same heart as Moses. Or maybe we should flip it and say Moses all along had the heart of God beating within him. Moses, that feeling, what you saw and the concern that you had, it wasn't an illusion. You're not crazy. God feels the same way. And then God appears to him. He's on this mount called Horeb, and he's a shepherd tending to his sheep. And one day God comes to him in the form of this bush that is on fire but does not burn up. And he calls out to Moses, Moses, Moses. Picture Moses again. He's been in Midian for years, maybe decades, with this passion that just slowly has been dying. And one day, Moses. Yes? Like, I imagine that little, like that thing that had just become the smallest little flame inside of him suddenly sparked up again. Maybe something big is about to happen in my life. And he responds to God, here I am. And God says to him, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And yes, I practiced that. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I've seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God shows up. Moses, what you saw, what you felt is what I see and what I feel. So now go, I am sending you. And Moses is like, who am I? God, I know you're God, so you know this. I tried already. When I was a young man, when I was a prince of Egypt, I tried and I failed. So I feel like you should go find somebody else. Maybe somebody younger, maybe someone with a better status, maybe someone with a better track record who hasn't failed before. But get somebody with some more just like oomph, because I got nothing. I'm an old shepherd now. Who am I that I'm gonna go to Pharaoh and I'm gonna bring the Israelites, his entire workforce. We're just gonna walk right out of Egypt. That's how we feel, isn't it? God, I already gave my best. I don't want to give my best again. It hurts too much. I'd rather just settle here in Midian. And God answers with what I think is the key for us to remember. The key for getting out of that, I failed and I don't want to try again. And it's really simple. God said, I will be with you. The difference maker this time will be that I will be with you. And then he says, and this will be the sign to you that it's I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. He's saying, you're about to go on a journey to Egypt and all the way back to this mountain. And when you get here, you'll realize God must have been with me every step of this journey. It's like he's saying to Moses, yeah, you failed the first time because I wasn't with you. You failed the first time because you ran ahead of me. You saw something, you're like, let me just kill this guy and bury him in the sand. God's like, whoa, maybe consult me because I got some ideas of how I can free my people. The first time you failed because you weren't with me. This next time will be so different because I will be with you. I think this changes everything for us. It does not guarantee success. If you only study the life of Moses, you'd think, God's with me, I can do all things, right? I can make it to the NBA. Remember last week? No. But I will be with you will change how you see success and failure. You'll no longer think, well, if what I envisioned happens, then that's success. And if what I envisioned doesn't happen, well, that's failure. No. Now you move to a new place of when I move, I walk with God. And if God is with me and I am faithful to him, then I am immune to failure. There's no such thing as failure. All I have to do is be faithful, trusting that he is with me. If he is with me and I am faithful, failure's off the table. I've already succeeded. In the life of Moses, he gets to experience success beyond his wildest dreams. In the life of many other characters in the Bible, they don't experience that. They experience persecution and martyrdom. And yet I bet if you were to ask them, did you fail? I mean, you preached this message and they killed you. I mean, fail, right? I mean, no. God was with me and I was faithful. And so I couldn't fail. There's this really cool part about Moses. And let me ask you this way. When you think of Moses, what do you think of? Beard? Charlton Heston? That's giving away your age a little bit there. When you think of Moses, he's got a staff, right? He's always got a staff. This isn't just something that we make up when we watch movies about him. Do a word search in the book of Exodus and you find this staff is everywhere. In fact, it's instrumental in many of the miracles that Moses does. It's instrumental in his first miracle before Pharaoh. He throws it on the ground, it turns into a snake. He picks it up by the tail, it turns back into a staff. It's also instrumental when he parts the sea and his people walk to freedom on dry ground. It says that Moses held up his staff and it took all night long for the waters to be driven back. And then the people walked to freedom on dry ground. This staff is always with Moses. Where did the staff come from again? From Midian. This is a piece of wood from Midian. A reminder of his past. A reminder of I've become a foreigner in my own life. And when God calls him from that failure into this new mission, he doesn't say, leave that behind. I don't want you to ever think about Midian again. It's almost like he says, I want you to always think about Midian. And I want you to be amazed at how far from Midian I'm going to bring you. I want you to, as you do each miracle, you're going to see that staff and go, I remember when I felt like I was a foreigner in my own life, and look how far I've come. I think that this is central to the picture of Moses, so that when we look at Moses, we're reminded, He's not just like Mr. could do everything and did it all on his own. Oh, how amazing is. No, he went to Midian and he was a failure. And God made him into a leader. He was a shepherd of sheep and God made him into a shepherd of nations. I think that we're meant to see the staff to remember that if God can bring Moses out of Midian, that he can bring you out of whatever failure you have experienced too. The staff goes everywhere with him. The Exodus is a central theme throughout the entire Bible. It gets referenced throughout the rest of the Old Testament. It's referenced in the New Testament. It's a central theme and one of the starring characters in it. It's the staff of Moses from Midian. A human holding a reminder of his failure. A human reminder of how God can bring us from a place of just complete, I've given up, into look at how I can still use you. I don't know where you're at this morning. If you, maybe I'm preaching a message on failure and you're like, I feel great. I am succeeding in every way. Wonderful. But maybe there's somebody here or watching online who feels like you're in Midian right now. I wanted to take just a minute and ask you to close your eyes and picture yourself in Midian like Moses. Where is the site of your despair? Where's the site of your failure? Where have your hopes died? That's your Midian. And I want you to imagine yourself there and realize that the God of Moses doesn't leave us in Midian. He comes to us in Midian. And in Midian, you can unload all of your fears. God, I tried before. I don't want to try again. I got embarrassed before. I don't want to do that again. I don't have anything left. I can barely get out of bed in the morning. I can't do this. And then hear God give you the key to getting out of Midian. I will be with you. If you could just trust that I will be with you, we will begin to walk out of this place together. It may not look like how you envisioned it, but I can still use you. You know, I studied so many things about failure this week. I have 18 pages of notes on practical things to help you get out of your failure. You need to grieve the loss. You need to re-strategize. You need to think about what you can learn. All helpful. You can Google it later. When I was working on this message, I realized I just want to talk about one thing. Are you walking with God? Do you believe that he's with you? Because if you do, it can set you free from whatever the past failure was so you can begin to move forward again and recapture the life that you were created to live. We're going to end this morning by celebrating communion together. And so I'm going to invite the band to come out. And look at them. Some of them are already behind me. So sneaky. But I'm going to invite them to come, and the communion servers are going to begin to get set up at the back. And we're going to end by celebrating communion this morning. And if you're a follower of Jesus, then we're going to do this together. If you're not a follower of Jesus yet, then I'm so glad that you're here. And I'd invite you to just let the plates pass in front of you and you can just observe. But we're so glad that you're in the room with us while we do this. When we celebrate communion, we are remembering the life of Jesus. In particular, his cross. Remembering the death on the cross for our sins. In light of this series, I might phrase it this way. We're remembering Jesus' death on the cross for our past, to cover our past guilt, our past shame, to give us power to forgive, to cover our past failures. And God's graciousness in doing this could also be defined using another word, the word mercy. It's an act of mercy that God covers over our past. Mercy being that we don't get what we deserve, but instead we get God's loving kindness. We deserve to be stuck in Midian, but because of the mercy of God, we get his loving kindness. So we're gonna sing a song while the elements are handed out. And the song is all about this mercy, and I invite you to reflect on the idea of mercy. But just before we sing the song, let me say a prayer. God, would you examine us? Would you help us examine our lives? Not just about failure, but in light of the whole series, God, where are we carrying guilt? Do we feel guilty? We don't need to feel guilty. There's forgiveness in you. Where are we carrying shame? Where have we convinced ourselves that we are unlovable? Remind us that while we were still sinners, you sent your son to die for us. There's nothing we could do to outrun your love. God, where are we carrying unforgiveness towards a brother or sister, a neighbor, someone in our workplace? Jesus, your spirit in us gives us the power to forgive and be set free from having to carry that around anymore. God, is there any place where we have decided to settle in Midian? Today, may we hear your voice calling us into purpose, to wake up and to live the life that we were created to live. Father, we thank you for your mercy. Jesus, we thank you for the cross. Holy Spirit, we ask for your power to walk in newness of life. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.